Okay, so we've used Intruder from our burp suite to perform brute force attacks. But now it's time to move on to the more advanced tool specifically made for these type of the attacks. And that tool is called Hydra. Now, I said it was an advanced tool, not because the attack itself is hard to perform, but because the syntax for that tool can be a little bit tricky sometimes, and there isn't a unique command that you can run for every website in order to brute force it. So we're going to dissect the command and explain how can you craft one for specific pages. The first page that we are going to take a look at is going to be Bwapp page on our OWASP virtual machine. So navigate there, and as we can see here we have a login screen. And this is exactly what we need in order to brute force. Now, keep in mind that we do get the correct credentials right here, which is useful for us to practice this attack. So we know that B is username and bug is a password, and this will work once we try to log in. But we want to see how we can get this as an output with the help of a Hydra tool and with the help of usernames list and passwords list. Okay, first of all, to run Hydra, we can open terminal and type in Hydra. This will open its help menu, and this help menu will not be of much use to you once you're opening this tool for the first time. It might seem like it has little options and that it's easy to run, but in reality, once you're brute forcing HTTP pages, there are a few things that you need to take a look at. So let's start off with crafting our command. The first thing that we want to type is Hydra and then the IP address of the target that we are attacking. In my case, it is the OWASP virtual machine, which has an IP address of 192.168.1.11. The second thing that we need to specify is which type of the attack are we performing. So we know that we have GET request and POST request. We can either specify the username and password right here with a GET request or with a POST request. And what will help us determine which one it is if we simply go to View Page Source and we find the form that is used to submit username and password, which is right here, we will notice that the method is POST. So we're submitting the username and password with POST request. Okay, let's go right here and let's type that after our IP address. In Hydra, in order to type that, we type http-form-post. If it was a GET request, you would type http-get-form. Simple as that. So those are the two options that you need to keep an eye on, and usually you will have them inside of the page source of the form that you're trying to brute force. The next thing that we need to specify is the path to the login page. Now, in order to get the correct path, we want to type any username and any password, so I'm just going to type test and test and click on login and see what do we get. So we get invalid credentials, and it's under the path /bwapp/login.php. We want to copy this path and we want to specify it in our command. In order to specify it, first thing we need to do is open double quotes. After that, we paste our path and we add 2 dots. Now, why are we adding 2 dots? Well, in Hydra, there are a few things that we need to specify. The thing number 1 is the path, which we specified right here. The thing number 2 is specifying the name of the username field, the name of the password field, and the button itself. Now, I know this sounds confusing, but we will do it right now. Hang on for just a second. That's the second thing. The third thing that we usually specify inside of our Hydra command is which error message do we get once we specify incorrect username and password, which in our case is this one right here. And at the end, we add the users list and the passwords list. Okay, so let's go back to the command. We specified at the beginning of the command, and we specified the first thing that comes in double quotes, and that is the path. Now comes the name of the username field, the name of the password field, and the name of the button. So in order to get the name of those fields, we once again want to go to the page source and we want to navigate to the form. Here we want to find the code that identifies the username input, and it's right here. If we take a look at the name tag and ID tag, we will notice that it's called login. So this will be the name of our username field. In order to specify that, we're going to type login equals, and then comes this arrow that is pointing upwards. After this arrow, we want to specify capital user, and then again this arrow that points up. Okay, what did we do right here? Well, the first thing that we did is we specified the name of our username field, and this part right here is just the syntax that tells Hydra to replace this user tag with the usernames that it will read from the usernames list that we will specify at the end of the command. So essentially it will just replace this with all of the usernames that it's trying to brute force with. Same thing goes with password. Now before we specify password, we need to type this sign right here in order to separate these two fields. And now comes the name of the password field, which we can read from the page source, and it's right here. We can see that the name is just password. So let's specify it like that. Password and equals upper arrow, pass, and then upper arrow once again. So the idea is basically the same for the password as well. It will replace the passwords from the list with this pass right here. And we want to separate it once again. And the last thing that we specify is the button itself. So we need to find the button code inside of the page source, and it's right here. As we can see, the name for the button is called form, and the value is equal to submit. So what we want to do is we want to go right here and type form equals submit. That will tell the Hydra tool that once it replaces the username and password, it has to click on a button in order to submit them and check whether they are correct or not. Now that we've finished with the second part of this command, we can go on to the third part by separating it with two dots once again. And we need to type the string that we get once a password is incorrect. And we have it right here. We can copy it, invalid credentials or user not activated. Let's copy that string or that message and we can paste it right here. Once you do that, you want to close the double quotes, and at the end, we specify the usernames list and the passwords list. Now, since we don't have one yet, let's just open another terminal, type ls and nano users.txt. Here we can type any usernames whatsoever. Let's go test123, root, admin, and let's add the correct username just so we can see whether the tool will work and whether it will manage to find this to be the correct username. Let me just double check. Yeah, B is username and bug is password. So we will be adding the correct credentials in the list just for the purposes of this tutorial in order to see whether it will work. In reality, of course, you wouldn't know the correct credentials and you would use much bigger lists than this. Okay, let's add, for example, admin123, and that would be about it for our users.txt. Now let's go and do the same for the pass.txt, and here will be our passwords. So let's go password, pass123, password123, let's go with bug, which is the correct password, and let's go with test1234. Okay, save this as well. And now we go back to our command where we need to specify that we want to use these two files in order to brute force. To specify the usernames file, we type dash and then capital L. After that comes the name of the file, which in my case is users.txt. And after that we specify capital P for the passwords file. And then the name of the passwords file, which is pass.txt. Okay. This is the entire command, and I know it might sound confusing and you probably have no idea what We did right here, but don't worry, this is the same reaction that everyone has once they first encounter the Hydra tool. And we will be taking a look at another example of crafting the Hydra command for a different web page in the next video. For now, let's go through this command once again and explain what we did. So first we type Hydra, then the IP address of the target, then which type of the brute force we want to perform based on how the credentials are being processed by the web page. Since they are processed with post request, we use http-form-post. If they were processed with GET request, we would type http-get-form. After that comes the double quotes part, which has three different things. The first thing, or the first part, is the path to the page that we want to brute force. The second part is the name from the username field, the name from the password field, and the button itself. And the third part is the string or the message that we get once we specify the incorrect username or password. This will help Hydra determine which credentials are correct based on this message. If we specify some credentials and we don't get this message, it will flag those credentials as correct ones and it will output it right here for us. At the end we specify -L and we specify the users.txt file or any list that we want to use for usernames, and -P and then the passwords file. Okay, let's press enter and see whether this command will work. And you will notice in just 1 second we managed to perform all of the combinations of usernames and passwords. And we got the correct one right here. So not only did this finish much faster than Burpsuit Intruder, but it also outputted our correct credentials in clear text right here. Let's give it a try and let's try to log in, B and bug, and click on login. And here we are. We logged in successfully. Awesome. So once again, this is a little bit complicated, but don't worry, in the next video we're going to check out another example of using Hydra on a web page. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next lecture.